from that brief break. We are today discussing about land and politics. What explains the impunity of land grabbers? Before we went for a break, Eddie and Henry and also Priska were sharing their views about the impunity of land grabbers in Uganda. So I want to bring on Henry on board. You know that following the calamitous levels of land grabbing by a network of cartels, as Priska and Eddie have elaborated, President Museveni in 2016 constituted a commission of inquiry into land matters led by Justice Catherine Bamugemereire. And in July 2022, she submitted a 750-page report to President Museveni. But we have seen that over the past weeks, excerpts of this report have been published in the media. What are some of the recommendations that has attracted your attention from the report of Bamugemereire?
Okay, thank you very much, Abel. Earlier on, before we went for the break, as Ed was sharing, there are things that came into my mind that I wanted to share quickly in 1 or 2 minutes. Number one, I do know for a fact that every district used to have something called a district farm institute, where they would go and do trials on which crops would grow, and they also demonstrate how the crops should be grown and animals reared. District farm institutes today are non-existent. Who grabbed this land? Uganda Railways, wherever it passed, it had huge chunks of land. Who grabbed this land? On the roads that were made, that were tarmacked, we used to have offices called PIDA. These had land. Who grabbed it? Uganda Transport Corporation, UTC. Its land is where Mukwano is sitting, Mukwano Mall. How did they get this land? Who signed it off? The abattoirs, the districts had abattoirs. Who took this land? They are no longer there. Produce Marketing Board had lands in places where they would do produce, stock produce in every district. Where did this land go? Why is nobody talking about them? Is the government forgetting? Could it be possible that the government does not know this information? But back to the question you've asked, Abel. Justice Catherine Bamugemereire submitted that report in July 2020 to the president, and indeed excerpts of it have been ongoing, have been published in the media over the past 1 week. And I want to highlight quite a number of them that I've picked. Number one, there is a recommendation that the land that is not being put to commercial use should be subjected to a tax. Okay? Now, it's not clear because they're referring to private land that is not in use should be subjected to a tax in order to encourage the absentee landlords to make this land, to put this land to commercial use. But when you look around, having heard from my brother Eddie about the land tenure system and establishing the relationship between land tenure systems and land grabbing, you discover that most of the land that is signposted as private is in Uganda. So the people of Uganda will ask, wait a minute, so when you say private land should be put to use, you are saying the land in Uganda should just be taxed like that? What are you saying? It is in Uganda, the truth must be told, where we have the biggest number of absentee landlords. So what are you saying? When it comes to Milo land, for example, and there's a recommendation on Milo land that there's been confusion on Milo land because of the contradictions in ownership. We have the Bibanja owners who seem to be having ownership, but we also have the landlord who has the title over this land, and that has caused the confusion. Therefore, Milo land should be confused, should be revised, if need to be removed. But Milo land is only in Uganda, and to the people of Uganda, land is equivalent to their sovereignty. You take away land from Buganda, you've taken away everything that Buganda thinks and feels about. So isn't there is a likelihood that these actions will be misconstrued? But there's also a recommendation about putting a ceiling on how much land one can own. For example, that a person should not be allowed to own beyond 2,000 acres. There's also another one on how to deal with land grabbers and so on, and putting in place a bank. They are calling it a national land bank. These are all interesting proposals, but the question is, to what extent are these going to be put into force? Because the government that we've been living under for the last 36 years is a government that is not renowned for implementing any recommendation from any commission of inquiry. Commissions of inquiry have been constituted, reports have been submitted, but there is no record that any of the recommendations from these commissions of inquiries has been considered. And therefore, it remains to be seen to what extent the Bamgemerere recommendations will be implemented. Never mind that there was an attempt to quash this report, which did not succeed though. But also never mind that the contradictions where some of them may be misconstrued to mean a direct attack on Uganda. Remember, sometime back, the Kawaka was saying that all the plans to kind of re-engineer and reform the land tenure system in Uganda are categorically designed to disown Baganda, to alienate Baganda from their land. And land is the only source of wealth that the Baganda want to cling on to. And so there are some of these things. And remember, this coming at a time when we have always repeatedly said that the Uganda question has never been answered since independence. All the presidents that have come and gone, they have swept it under the carpet. So I don't know whether this is the correct time, but these are some of the recommendations that I can pick out that are glaring. Maybe my other colleagues can add. Thank you, Abel.
Thank you, Henry. Please, I don't know whether you've been privy to some of these excerpts that have been coming out from the Bamgemere report. I don't know what are some of the proposals that caught your mind. And you were sharing about the network of mafias which are connived with some of the people in the Uganda Land Commission. And also the report highlights some of those things where they are talking about they have asked that some of these guys will connive, and the people in the Uganda Land Registry do inform them of where they can get land which they can purchase under lease. So I don't know what other things caught you up in that report, Priska.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Abel. I didn't go into detail about the report because from what I know is I read on the NRM manifesto for the 2021 that the president used, and he said that on the subject of land, he said their proposal was basically to adopt all the recommendations that the Bamgemerere Commission had made, and that was the little subject that he had on land, whereas the other parties went into details and what. But for him, he said he's going to make recommendations, and now it's already 1 year into his term. I don't know how much time he has over the what to implement the recommendations. So I would be lying to my audience that I went deeply into the recommendations of. But from what Henry said, that the Uganda question, when you look at the people who know the politics very well and how the president plays with it, because he made sure he's bringing what people say that the street talk, that he's bringing fellow Baganda to fight the Kabaka, because the state minister for lands is Mayanja, and he's a staunch opposer of the kingdom. that he brought on board. So he's going to lead the battle, and the Minister of Lands is also in Uganda, and the Attorney General, who is supposed to defend the land is going to be a battle in Mengo and between the central government and Mengo. And from what I know is in one of the supplementaries, they have paid about Uganda Kingdom about 20 billion shillings compensating for the kingdom about some land. That I don't know whether the kingdom has received the money, but Parliament approved that money. So the fight right now is something that we have to watch out, because the man has set the kingdom up, because bringing fellow Baganda to fight their own Kabaka. They will have no excuse to say it's a Munyankole, it's a Mucholio, it's what. They are bringing his own subjects to fight him.
Thank you, Priska. Eddie, I want you to discuss your views on the current recommendations from the
For me, one of the key recommendations that stands out for me is re-engineering the Uganda Land Commission, but also putting up a fund to help to access the financial wherewithal to ensure that people can register land. You know that land has been, the cartels have made land registration so expensive when it's supposed to be a cheap process. When you go to most of these district land boards, you're going to have the number of middlemen around the district land office are much more than the number of people who are coming to register land. And you wonder where this leaves a common person who does not have the knowledge wherewithal to understand the land registration system. But also, he mentions within the re-engineering of the Uganda Land Commission and the Uganda Land Fund, he mentions harmonizing the different. She mentions in the report harmonizing the different land authorities under the district, under the local authorities, and under the Uganda Land Board. You know, these are centers of authority, and each one of them claim to have a final say over the land that is under his or her jurisdiction. I'm finding it very difficult to mention that word. But what I'm trying to mean is that the moment these kind of authorities are not harmonized into one single authority, we are going to find it a problem to harmonize land issues. And for me, that is a standout. But secondly, the automation of land that the report recommends also comes out as key, because under this system, they are recommending that you no longer need to have a paper as a basis for your land, that I have a land title. You only need to have a chip, just like you have an ATM, such that when you go into the land registry or the land system, you just put in your chip, and it will read who you are, where the land is, who owns the land, who has the rights of the land, and many other things. And for me, this is something that we need to do all along, that is coming in as handy in this report. So the key issues are harmonizing the land registry to put in, the land management system to have one authority, but also the automation of land comes out as a key issue in the report that I think is key to this development. But also, lastly, this is going to remove the middlemen, which I think the report is citing as a very key issue in distorting land management systems. I thank you, Abel.
Okay, Eddie, there is this question also of the effectiveness of the Uganda Land Commission in managing land matters. It has been questioned, and part of the recommendations from the very report is that they should dissolve the Uganda Land Commission. Where is the problem exactly? I want Eddie and also Henry to respond to this.
You see, the Uganda Land Commission has failed on its role. If you have a commission that has contrasting interests in terms of reporting, in terms of who they pay allegiance to, in terms of who has preferential treatment against the other, then the commission does not stand. for me, when Bamgamerire says re-engineer the institution, this is what she's trying to mention to us in inverted commas, that dissolve the commission, but also reconstitute it in a way that is appreciative of the interest of the people. Secondly, if you have a commission that like the way it is and it is marred by corruption, then that institution ceases to serve the interest of the people, but serves the interest of the mafia and the cartel that we have just mentioned about. And therefore, for me, reinstituting, re-engineering the Uganda Land Commission into the Uganda Land Fund that, like Mkemiri mentions, does not only give it a mandate to identify challenges in the land sector, but also gives us a leeway to identify finances to register land. Remember that only between 15 to 20% of land is registered in Uganda, and the biggest challenge we have in land is either the information regarding it or the financials that go with it. So for me, this is a very good development, for as long as the new one that shall be put in place serve the interest of a common Ugandan, over 80% of the population that does not either have knowledge or resources to have their land registered. Back to you, Abel.
Henry, what is your view on the recommendation that Uganda Land Commission should be dissolved?
Eddie hit the nail on the head when he talked about corruption. The monster of corruption that has dysfunctionalized state institutions has not spared the Uganda Land Commission. It is an institution in captivity, captured by the mafia, whose appetite and penchant for land is incomprehensible. From the commission of the late Manager Nkanji to Isoke to now Nyakaisichi, the behavior of this commission has been the same. I remember so vividly about the playgrounds of Kololo SS, and then the one of Nakasero SS, then Kitand. They have special, instead of protecting public land, they had specialized in identifying where public land exists and engaging in deals with the mafias, which is why we are not bewildered to learn that the current chairperson of the Land Commission is not only interdicted on suspension, but she's also being charged in the courts of law. So the commission had ceased to serve the purpose for which it was established, and had become a tool for the mafia to grab as much land as they could, and therefore had outlived its usefulness. So I in that regard, I think I agree with the commission's recommendation of reconstituting this, but I think the problem goes much deeper than what we are seeing, than what meets the eye. For example, I think what we are seeing, the behavior and corruption in the Uganda Land Commission is just a symptom of a bigger cause, the root cause that has to be addressed. And I think what has to be addressed is the impunity. First of all, the insatiable appetite to grab and always to grab and loot whatever is tagged public, but also the inefficiency and the lack of leadership and the dysfunctionalization of state institutions operating as if they're not accountable to anybody. I think these are some of the things that bedevil the performance of that institution. Back to you, Abel.
I want to get your views. You have had both Eddie and Henry share the view that the institution, the Uganda Land Commission, should be dissolved. And I know there are some people who are saying that some of the institutions in Uganda are failed or are ineffective because of sometimes the political interferences they face. Don't you think this could be one of the reasons why the Uganda Land Commission is not performing? Political interferences?
Of course, you can't rule out the political interference. And when I was carrying out research on this subject, Professor Oloka Onyango did a very good study in October 20 crisis in the country, and he hinted on all these things, the breakdown of the governance in the land administration and governance. And one of the things he said that Uganda has is in a deep land crisis as a country. And he said that, and this shows it's a characteristic of you cannot separate the land grabbing or the impunity in land from the governance challenges that the country is facing. So, and the recommendation he made that unless we sort out the governance challenges in Uganda, we are going to still face the same land wrangles. Because they say now currently all the bodies that are charged with looking after the land registration and management have broken down. It's the president that is overseeing the appointment of the people, and this is the same person who is you're trying to fight corruption and saying as long as they are keeping the money within the country. So it's well, Bamgamarere might have made all those recommendations that Eddie and Henry have talked about, but I tend to think that unless we sort out the issue of the governance issue in the country, it's going to stay with us for a long time. And when you look at what the president's argument on why he wants my land to be swept off is, it's because they argue that it was imposed on us by the colonialists, so it's time to sort it out. But I tend to think that, well, we inherited this problem from the colonialists, but we have to put the blame also on the post-colonial governments that took over power. They failed to sort out the land issues, and we really need a government that is going to come and sort out the land issues. So even when Eddie and Henry are in concurrent with some of the recommendations that are being made, but unless if we sort out the corruption issue within the country, because they are twins, the impunity in the land and the corruption. I don't think there is going to be much that is going to be done. Because what I know, for instance, when I was discussing about this topic with Lisa, and she told me about, cited the case of Naburu as one of the things. And I read the parliament report, and government was recommending to compensate each of the occupants with 17 million shillings. Which land in Nagu can you find at 17 million shillings? Because these people because they've set aside 40 billion shillings, and there are about 1,797 occupants. Because first of all, there are two lists of the people. There was the first list that had 2,000. Then there was the second list that had 1,000. So the ghosts who had sneaked in. And so you're looking at someone who was evicted it's coming to over 15 years when they were evicted. Now their government is planning to give you 17 million shillings. Because they had promised you that, and that is something that the parliament rejected and said no. If you're going to compensate these people, you should give them the value of the house that you had promised them. So the land issue in Uganda is a pandemic, as Henry had put up, and we are always glossing over it. And I think it's just a time bomb before the whole country explodes. Because I know very many people who want to buy land. At least Eddie has interfaced with the Land Commission officials. So he knows how to get around the system. But now, for instance, or Abel just walking into it, and you're interested in a particular land without even consult. We are always thinking, what if my money is swindled, everything? So that is how deeply the land crisis is. It has even made us to step back on our investments because you're afraid of losing money. It's a problem that we are underlooking, but it's a pandemic that is soon going to explode. We can call it the fourth or fifth variant from the COVID, the one that we are going to face.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time, but there's this last question which I would like Henry to respond to. I'll ask all of you give us your parting shots. We know that most of the victims who fall onto these land grabbers often seek for justice in the courts of law. But courts often rule in favor of the land grabbers. Now, if courts of law cannot offer justice, where should the aggrieved go? Henry, as you give us your parting shot, and also
Of Of course, Abel, this is the one reason why the LOC courts seem to be very popular among the people, because most of these land wrangles people have tended to take them to the LOC courts because there you get justice. The courts of law, you cannot get justice because corruption has pervaded them as well. They will only judge in favor of he who has deeper pockets, and therefore the poor remain poor. Okay, that won't happen. And yet people of Uganda should have and must have, and indeed they have the right to be protected against forced evictions. People have a right not to be arbitrarily deprived of their property. People should have a right to voluntarily return to the lands where they've been evicted, such as the Rusanja thing. But as I conclude, and my parting short appeal, when you look across the horizon, there is a sense in which land grabbing is becoming an international issue. And we hope that as the discussion is going, it should be included and listed as one of the crimes against humanity. Okay? And therefore, in the situation where no one inside the country can hold the land grabbers accountable, at least the International Criminal Court should. And therefore, I think we need to also look at that end. But nobody has a right to deprive anybody, and land is an issue which you have to go slow. And I wonder if this country has a policy, a comprehensive policy on land management, land acquisition. How do we protect the people from being grabbed? How do we, deal with land grabbers? I think it is about time that we develop a national policy, a public policy on this. I thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Eddie.
Well, my concerns are very few here. What should we address in order to have, in my parting shots, have a better land management system? One, we learned that many Ugandans do not have access to information, education, and communication on land matters. If the Uganda Commission is to help us, let there be a very full-scale information and education strategy to educate Ugandans on what land issues are, especially on issues of ownership, access, usage, and rights. That's where the challenge is. Secondly, we should have the overlapping statutory roles of the bodies that are managing the land sector in Uganda. The Uganda Land Commission, the Merire issue where she says that we should now have the land fund, the customary land committees, the Uganda Land Board. There's a whole spectrum of bodies whose roles are interlocking that we must address, just like the report says. But also, the lengthy land registration processes are critical in ensuring that most of Uganda's land is not registered. And the way we do shorten it by eradicating the mafias is very critical. And lastly, there's a very critical issue of absentee landlords. Landlords that have used this land as security in banks to acquire loans. But also, there are tenants on that land that have used the same land that began to acquire loans in banks and financial institutions. So there's a mix-up where the same land is used by the landlord to acquire a loan, but also the tenant is using the same land to acquire a loan. And the overlapping issue of who should the bank go for? Should they go for a landlord or should they go for a tenant? Is very critical, and the Uganda Land Fund should be able to come into this and be able to help. And more lastly, the financial wherewithal. The Uganda Land Fund must educate and provide financial resources. Our government had, through the World Bank, had instituted this through the private sector foundation, where they wanted the population to access and register land. I don't know how that faded, but I think it's now time to catch up with it. And for me, I appeal to my father. I don't know whether it's my father or my grandfather. Land is a critical issue in Uganda today. It's a factor of production. What shall we know about you if we cannot have land? What are we going to tell our grandchildren that what happened to our land? I think the state has lost control over land issues. please come out and assert your role as a president to ensure that such kind of issue. Otherwise, Ugandans are angry, but they cannot get annoyed anymore. You see, please come to the rescue of the population that votes you. You know we love you so much, but we lack the expression to tell you to come and help us. And it's in your purview that such kind of thing is done by yourself on behalf of Ugandans. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eddie, and thank you for loving the president. Priska, you can give us a prediction.
All right. I'm hinting about we have, I think as a country we have ignored the land crisis for a very long time, and it's time that we sorted out this issue. Let everything that I hope that the regime is going to implement everything that has been recommended by the Uganda Commission, because some of the recommendations will help us sort out the mess, and it will help us sort out the mess that has for over 50 years we have been postponing the land issue, sorting out the land tenure system and everything. I think it is about time, because the more times we tend to delay sorting out the mess, the more time people are going to hesitate towards making investment decisions on their land. Because, so for instance, the Milo question, the Waganda who are owning Milo right now, they are threatened because they do not know the future. So they are holding on to their investment on their land. I think it's time. We are in a deep crisis. It's time that the government came out and looked into the land matter.
Thank you so much, Priska, Henry, and Eddie, for sharing your views and the other perspective where we always interrogate the thing behind the thing. It has been me, Abel, your host, and I want to thank all our viewers outside there. Let's continue the conversation on all our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are ACFIM. On YouTube, we are ACFIM Uganda. And on Twitter, it's ACFIM Eugene. Thank you. Well, let's meet next time, same day.